Okay, good morning, everybody, or evening, or wherever you are. Welcome to the live stream. Nice to see a lot of familiar folks here from the Fingerstyle 5, and also, I'm sure, plenty of other people as well. Today is not going to go on forever, but let me know if you can or can't hear everything, or if the sound is okay, and we'll get into it. I'm here today to talk about this idea of learning 8-bar blues, and so I've got these 5 favorite 8-bar blues picked out that I'm going to just talk about a little bit. If you've spent any time on my YouTube channel, or if you're one of these folks that are already doing the Fingerstyle 5, you know these tunes, you're familiar with them. And I even did a 5 8-bar blues roundups a year ago, but you know, that was 2023. And so let's talk about all the hot new 8-bar blues from 1935 here in the year 2024. Basically, my premise is that 8-bar blues are just a good thing to know. If you are used to sitting around and playing 12-bar blues, or if that's sort of your common ground where you're going to, jam with another guitar player, there are some reasons that 8-bar blues it's a good idea to know a handful. I'm getting some sound check here. More guitar, huh? All right, nobody ever says that. Okay, I can turn things up a teeny bit. So I'm just going to talk about these tunes and play through them a little bit. But here are a few reasons first why learning 8-bar blues is a good idea. First of all, it's not the 12-bar blues, right? So it doesn't sound quite like what you sort of just got going on in your head all the time. So just for a change of pace, 8-bar blues are great. Another reason is they have really distinct melodies. When you sit down to play an 8-bar blues, it's usually a little more song-like than just a blues jam. And so if the long-suffering people who listen to your guitar playing around the house are like, are you just noodling again? You can be like, no, man, I'm playing a song. So there's that going for it. And I've made sure to pick ones to talk about that had like these distinct melodies. Another thing is that a lot of these tunes go back far enough and have been done in enough different genres that they provide this common point between genres. So, if you know a song like Sitting on Top of the World from listening to blues people do it, there's probably going to be a country or bluegrass person that you know or a Western swing fan who knows that tune as well. And so you have this like point of interaction now. Same thing goes for, a tune like St. James Infirmary. Anybody who plays jazz or who plays earlier kinds of jazz is going to know a version of St. James Infirmary. And if you play blues, so will you. So there's a lot of that. And even like between people who play, if people are, if you've got friends that are more into like, British blues or, electric blues stuff, then these songs, they've filtered through the system. They've been played by the earlier rural musicians, and then they end up in the urban blues stuff, and then on into the rock world as well. So that's another point of contact between you and another person who's into some other kind of genre. And then finally, my favorite thing about this is that there are so many versions of these songs. These tunes that I've singled out go back a far ways, and there are so many different people who've done them that you don't have to feel like you're stuck playing the so-and-so version. Some songs, it's just so definitive. Like you're going to learn Candyman. You're going to either learn, there's really 2 versions of it, right? There's basically the John Hurt version and there's the Gary Davis version, and everybody else bases their versions off of that. So you've got those 2 things, and you've kind of either got to play it like one or the other of those artists, or it doesn't sound, correct, basically. Or even a tune like Freight Train. There's like one way to play Freight Train. It's a guitar piece. It's Elizabeth Cotton's version because she wrote it. And everybody learned that. So you got to do it that way. But these tunes have been like just knocked around so much by so many different people. They've been played in every conceivable key, tempo, groove. Some of them they all have different versions of the words depending on who you listen to. So I think that's a great thing about it, which is that you can treat them almost like, the way people, for better or worse, treat jazz standards now. And they've got the chart and they're like, this is the melody, these are the changes. Everybody work out what you're going to do, right? Sidebar, I don't think that's actually the best way to learn those tunes. But when you can treat these tunes as what's the melody? What are the chords? How am I going to work this tune out? You've got a lot more flexibility, which means you can eventually find your way to your version of the tune, because you can take, I like, the lyrics from this version. I like the melody from this version. I like the key and the tempo over here. And, you can put together something that makes sense to you. I once saw Tom Bresch talking and playing at the Chet Atkins convention in Nashville. And he said, I never played anything note for note. I figure I got my thumb, I got the tune, and I got my imagination. And I'm like, this is Merle Travis's son. You'd think he'd be all about let's play the songs exactly like they're supposed to be played. But that wasn't his take on it, and I really loved that. So let me get into these tunes. I'm gonna just play a little bit of each one and say why I think it's important, and then we'll keep it moving. So, and this is not like a countdown from 5 to 1 or anything. These are just, in no particular order, 5 8-bar blues tunes that I think it's a good idea to know. So, first one is Trouble in Mind. I'm going to play it in A, but you can also play it in E. So, classic, been done by zillions of people, really satisfying. It's got great chords to improvise over, really fun. Okay, and again, and you could do it in E, and it sits great on the guitar in E. Can't complain that it's early because I'm the one who set up the live stream for 10:30 in the morning my time. So anyway, there it is, Trouble in Mind. Next one, St. James Infirmary. Always great to have a tune in a minor key. This one works well with the alternating thumb. And this one's great because it's very flexible in terms of the way you play the chords. You can keep them really simple. Just 1 and 5. I think the first version I learned was from a Dave Van Ronk record, and he was strumming it, and he really was just playing A minor, D minor, and E7. But you can go all the way up through all kinds of different chord substitutions. F, B7 or B minor 7, and then E with the G sharp in the bass. C with a G in the bass, D with an F sharp in the bass, F, B, E. right, so super flexible from the simplest to the most elaborate. And minor and alternating thumb, so totally different from Trouble in Mind. And a strong melody, sounds like the song. Third is You Got to Move, which is kind of cheating because You Got to Move is really 3 or 4 songs. I keep trying to keep an eye on the thread and play the song at the same time, and that's actually really hard to do. So if you listen to a lot of blues, you can hear that it's more than one song. It's You Got to Move. It's also Sitting on Top of the World, originally done by the Mississippi Sheiks. I haven't done the research. That's probably where all these other versions come from. I don't really know. You Got to Move is more of like a gospel thing. So there's some overlap. I don't know which actually. I feel like the Sheiks version came first, but I don't know that for sure because I'm not Steve James, unfortunately. And it's also Come On In My Kitchen by Robert Johnson. Basically, the melody's a little different. And it's even a slide instrumental by Tampa Red called Things About Coming My Way. So that tune travels far and fast. And, you know, you can do it with a steady bass. You can do it with a shuffle bass. You know, you could probably, let's see, what else could you do? It's too much of a reach for a walking bass, but you know, you could probably work out some other kind of groove for it too. So that one's super flexible. Okay, next, How Long Blues. I have this on the brain. I've obviously been posting a lot of videos about it lately because we've been doing it all this month in the Fingerstyle 5. This comes from 1928 from the pianist and singer Leroy Carr with Scrapper Blackwell on guitar. And I only recently took the time to actually learn this properly and kind of figure it out. Again, there are a million versions. There are these really beautiful versions by Count Basie. There are jazz versions, blues versions, just it's everywhere. Probably the template for a lot of later 8-bar blues that were recorded because it was so successful. People probably modeled subsequent songs off of this one. So, So that one also is flexible. Again, you can play it very simply with just the 1, 4, and 5. Or you can like syncopate it and monkey with the bass notes and add in chord substitutions and do all kinds of things like that. So again, super flexible. And finally, the first 8-bar blues I actually learned, and for a long time I was like, is this the only 8-bar blues? Is of course Key to the Highway, which like most people I learned off the Derek and the Dominoes record. In fact, I think I first heard How Long Blues on the first Hot Tuna record. That's probably the first place I ran into that song. But Key to the Highway, and then, you know, of course, like I dug back and figured out, I'm pretty sure Eric Clapton came to that tune through the Freddie King version, because there is a Freddie King version that sounds a lot like the Eric Clapton version, like just a really heavy shuffle. But of course, Key to the Highway goes way the heck back to the late 20s or early 30s, can't remember. And the version that sort of made it, that I think popularized it, was the Big Bill Broonzy version. And it was actually, I think, kind of a 12-bar blues before Big Bill Broonzy kind of reshaped it into an 8-bar blues. But I did a whole sort of video blog about this for TrueFire a million years ago. And at that time, I remember sort of getting to the bottom of all this and thinking it was pretty cool, just how it all had come together. But anyway, Key to the Highway in E works really nice. So that one is actually kind of easy to get mixed up with Trouble in Mind, because Key to the Highway starts off with E. If you're playing it in E, it starts off on the 1 chord, goes to the 5, and then it goes to the 4 chord for 2 bars. Key to the Trouble in Mind also goes from 1 to 5, and then goes back to 4, goes back to 1 and then goes over to the 4. So I put those at opposite ends of my list just so I wouldn't get them mixed up, and played Trouble in Mind in A so I wouldn't get them mixed up. But so those are 5 particularly good 8-bar blues to do. And of those of you that are here that are in the Fingerstyle 5, you know we've covered most of these. We've done Trouble in Mind in A and in E, done St. James Infirmary in A minor, done You Got to Move with the shuffle bass in E, and we have just finished doing How Long Blues in A. And in the fall of 2024, we're finally going to do Key to the Highway in E. So that's coming up. And we'll spend some time going over that. But the other 4 we've covered. These are 4 other really good 8-bar blues that I have also taught a lot, and that are also good for various reasons. These are not in this list of 5, but they're also great. Let's see. Oh, my. I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them, and then I put something right in front of them. Nobody's Fault But Mine, which is super flexible. You can play it on 1 chord. You can play it with a whole chord progression. Baby, Please Don't Go, same thing. Great alternating thumb tune. So that works really well. Motherless Child is a really nice one, another minor key tune. And then House of the Rising Sun. You don't really think about it necessarily as an 8-bar blues, but it is, and it works really great in this context as well for solo fingerstyle guitar. So there it is, 5 8-bar blues and 4 extra ones, plus all the things that kind of rhyme with You Got to Move. At this point, if there's any questions about any of that, happy to talk about this for a little bit. Just wanted to sort of present these tunes and why I think they're a good thing to learn. But if there's anything that went by that you want me to detail a little more, or anything that's been happening lately on the channel that I can talk about, happy to do that. And of course, also questions about if you're not a Fingerstyle 5 member, I am happy to explain more about how that works and what we do there. Or if you're on the fence about doing tomorrow's Slide Foundations workshop, I have one of my guitars rigged up here for open tuning, and I can answer questions about that as well. So, and if there aren't any questions, that's cool too. It's always kind of fun to just kind of come on and do this live instead of posting the videos. So, I had a question about the guitar, so I'm happy to talk about that. Yeah, this is new to me. I've been playing it on and off for a little while, but I finally actually bought it from a friend of mine. So it was in the studio for a while before I did. And it's a Santa Cruz 00. So it's like my Collings that I play live. It's based on what Martin made for a 00 guitar in, like, I don't know. The Collings I know was based on the 1929 Martin. This one looks the same to me. It's got the 12 fret join. It's got the same style of the little pyramid bridge, the slotted headstock. I don't think the neck is quite as wide. The Collings is a 13/16, and I don't know about this one. Let's see, spruce top, and yeah, this one's mahogany. So when I got the Collings, it was spruce. It was the Collings is a rosewood back and sides, and my Martin that I use on the channel all the time is mahogany. So I kind of wanted another small guitar like the Collings, but with a mahogany back and sides. And so when this came into view, I was like, yeah, that's probably going to be exactly what I want. It's really different from the two other acoustics that I have that I play all the time. I don't know how to describe it, but it's got a very different quality to it. And so it's sort of something to get used to, and also something that's really kind of nice because it is so different. Grappler 50 says, it says the registration is closed. That may be like an old glitchy link. There's not, the registration for the Fingerstyle 5 is always open at, I will put the link in here. Oh no, sorry, I'm typing, it's boring. There. Yeah, I believe it's short scale also, which is something that I really love. I was playing, I was helping my friend Brett check out this Gibson J45 Custom, and that is also a short scale guitar, I found out, which is why I like it so much. So yeah, it's a 00 style. Oh yeah, the Martin that I usually play on the channel is a 0018. This one, which is in D tuning right now. So I don't know if the 00 is really considered a parlor guitar, but it looks like those little parlor guitars. Oh my, lots of questions. Let me go back and see. A version of Freight Train. That is a good question. I mean, that's one of those ones I feel like there's not that much different. I mean, you could improvise on it, and that would be fun. But as far as arranging the tune, it's kind of like, it doesn't sound like Freight Train unless you play it like Freight Train. But in April, we're going to start doing John Hurt's version of Nobody's Dirty Business. Well, we're going to do a version of Nobody's Dirty Business, which is usually associated with John Hurt, which is also a tune in C. So a lot of the stuff we do for C for that will be applicable to these other sort of classic tunes, like Freight Train, even though Freight Train has like that E7 coordinate. So probably it'd be good to talk about like Freight Train and Make Me a Pound on the Floor and some tunes like that in one go that have like that kind of move, right? Because that's a thing to actually deal with if you're gonna do something interesting and develop the tune in some way or another. Let's see. Oh, from Bruce. Hey, Bruce. Will the Slide Workshop have a specific song? Yes, we're going to do a version of Corinna Corinna. And that's actually going to be like the third part of the workshop. We're going to start with just with getting oriented in D, and just, where are the chords and what does your alternating thumb have to do, and then different kinds of slides, hammer-ons and pull-offs, and how to control the slide so that it's not just going all over the place, right? And we'll sort of work out the melody and then put those two things together so that you can combine that groove, right, and the fretted chords. Right? Real simple, but just to get that together, so that you can get that coordination between the sliding and the finger picking. Because the idea is to be able to use the slide in the context of a complete tune. So we'll focus on getting the groove together, we'll focus on getting the slide sound, and then we'll use the tune to sort of put the two things together. And that's the tune that we're going to use this time. Every time I do one of these workshops, I want to fit so much into it. And lately I've been thinking, yeah, it does. Yeah, the melody that Clapton plays on Alberta is definitely similar to Corinna. That's another pair of tunes that are closely related for sure. I always want to put so much stuff in. And once you've done one song, I'm like, well, and then you could do it on this song, and here's how you would triangulate and do it on this song. So you can see. But I feel like for this, there's so many, the slide itself is such a thing to control. The open tuning presents a lot of challenges. And then it's wrapping your hand around picking these new chord shapes. And I was like, let me just keep it to these three simple things so that you can just go this part, this part, this part, or I guess for your point of view, it's this part, and this part, and how to put them together so that if you can just get it coordinated, under relatively simple circumstances, you'll be able to leverage that as you could eventually apply it to other tunes. But the important thing is to get the techniques and the coordination down first, and get it really where it feels comfortable instead of getting overwhelmed with 8,000 different things to think about at once. So that's the idea with that. Do you play, from Stephen, hello, do you play slide on a guitar with the same action as fingerstyle? I do, but that's because I also don't like super thin action on my acoustic guitar. So I like to have a little bit, I like to be able to dig in a little bit and not have things start to buzz and fret out. So I can pick pretty hard on this guitar and it still sounds clean because the strings aren't right next to the frets. That's my personal choice, but it's all a trade-off. The lighter the strings and the closer to the fretboard, the harder it is to control the sound and the more kind of clank and rattle and that kind of thing you get, right? But if you get the action cranked up too high and the strings are too stiff, then it's really hard to fret the notes. And you got to sort of think of that guitar as a dedicated slide guitar, which doesn't make sense to me because I think that so much is involved. To me, my favorite kind of slide playing is a combination of slide and not slide notes, as opposed to if you're going to do that sort of Midwestern school, that sort of Leo Kottke, and I guess that goes really back to John Fahey, where you're playing a lot of chords with the slide, then a heavier setup makes sense. But I want to be able to do fretted notes too. And I want to be able to use one guitar for both if I feel like it, and not feel like one of the guitars is just not going to work. There was a question about the dobro. Do you only play lap style or not? Yeah, and Julian, I see your question too about the LGOs. But what was I going to say? Oh, first, yeah. So they actually made dobro, literal dobro brand guitars were made both with a round neck and a square neck. So the square neck was considered Hawaiian style, and the round neck was considered Spanish style. So that's actually why the ES335, it stands for Electric Spanish, and it probably costs $335. ES175, ES125, same thing, right? I have a lap steel in this little old tweed case. It's called an EH150 or something because it's the Electric Hawaiian, right? So manufacturers made both and gave them different names. And the square neck ones you played on your lap, and the round neck ones you played regular. And so you can see people playing Dobro style guitars with the Dobro style resonator, playing them like regular guitars. But typically, people who play a round neck, like bottleneck and fretted guitar, tend to prefer the Nationals, which were just built a little bit differently. And people who played lap style for like bluegrass primarily and country tend to play Dobro model guitars, even though both companies made both. And you can see people like, there was a blues guy named Black Ace who I think played like a square neck tricone on his lap. And, there's obviously people, maybe even Clapton is one of them, who played like a round neck dobro for slide. Oh yeah, from Julian. You mentioned the J45 recently in your email talking Gibson. I know you're more of a Martin guy, but your thoughts on the LGO, LG2, and then the bigger J45. Okay, so I went around and played a bunch of old LGOs and LG2s and different, because I was like, yeah, that would be my thing. Like, it's a small body guitar, but it's a Gibson. And my current thinking, which is definitely could change at any minute, I didn't like them. And then I played this J45 the other day, and I was like, oh, I like this. And what I sort of figured out, thinking that I was going to go find if I'm going to spend as much money as the Santa Cruz is, I'm going to get another vintage guitar, right? But what I found was every time I found a vintage guitar that I liked. I played a couple of old, I think I played like a like an 016 Martin, which was like, I think a nylon string they would convert to steel string guitars in the 60s. And then I played some of these small Gibsons, and they have a very specific sound. And if you want that kind of boxy, nasal, old blues sound, perfect. They're amazing. But when I would go up the neck and try to play like some different, more colorful chord voicings, and I wasn't playing as hard, and I was trying to get these other delicate things to come out, two things would happen. One, I was like, well, it's still got that same sound. It really wants to be playing like this bluesier stuff. And the other thing was that most of the vintage guitars, I'd get halfway up the neck and something would go wrong. Like some note would fret out, something just wouldn't sound clean, things would get wonky. And it was a bit of a wild card. I was like, well, can this be fixed with the setup? Does it need a neck reset? Is there enough room left to bring down the saddle? Does it even have a truss rod? And then I would pick up the Santa Cruz and be like, oh, I can play anything I want. And it's got a sort of more neutral sound. It doesn't speak to a particular kind of genre or tone, or maybe because it hasn't been used a lot for a certain kind of music necessarily. But that was kind of my take on it. But the J45 was it was a reissue, right? It was like 2011, so it wasn't an old guitar. So it was perfectly fluent all the way up and down the neck, so that was great. It had a slightly wider neck than a lot of Gibsons. A lot of the Gibsons have this really narrow neck that feels kind of, I just start to make mistakes. I'm like, I can't get to my fingers where I want them to. And then, but the J45 had this like big round kind of sound, and really warm, but also had the highs. It worked really nicely for everything. So I was like, yeah, this is an option. Like I could see this working. So that was kind of where I came out with all that. And then it turned out my friend Brett actually was like, no, I think I'm going to buy this one. And I was like, okay, well, you saw it first. So go for it. Let's see. From Bill. Hey, do you use, and then Delphine, I see you have a question too. I'll try to get to that. Do you use 14 strings on the resonator to play in the low C tuning? Oh, 14 gauge. I was like, 14 strings. Like, Am I going to fit 14 strings on here? No, let's see. What have I got? I've got my newer National here. This is actually tuned down to C right now, which is kind of pushing the limits. But I was using it on a recording for a friend, and I needed to be in the key of C, so I took D tuning and just went down another whole step. And this is the slide that's closest. This is the National where I took the strap off, the metal part that goes over the bridge, so that I could palm mute. They don't all have a screw to take them off. My older one, it's all one metal thing, so you can't do that. But this one I finally got hip and took it off. So it feels a lot more playable to me now. But this will work for just standard fretted guitar. So it'll get a clean enough sound with the slide and still be comfortable for fretted guitar stuff. Let's see. Good questions. Yeah, some of the LG2s do have that like really huge baseball bat neck, which I'm definitely not into. Here's a question. Okay, so Delphina. So we'll get back to that question. You demonstrated a tune with two different bass rhythms. How do you decide what type of bass, steady, alter, or shuffle to choose to play for a given tune? It kind of how do I decide? That's a good question. My default is kind of an alternating thumb, interestingly enough. But I tend to do that thing that I call faking the fourth string, where I just kind of damp. It's ringing. Oh, the National's like ringing sympathetically. So, I mean, that could be like a steady bass song. It could be if I could play the guitar. But the thing is, part of what it depends on is how static is the chord progression. Because I'm just going to be sitting here, right? Then I'm going to want some motion. And so either I'll do like that rocking bass that we talked about in that lesson, the 9 variations on Rosedale Shuffle, just to get some motion. Or we did some of that on How Long Blues too, right? But so if it's just going to be sitting there, then I want to get something going. But it also depends on how the improvisation is going to go, right? So when the steady bass, if you can play steady bass and in an open key, you've got a lot more, once you go to solo, you're not as tied down. But you also get that kind of thinness, right? If you just play single note licks. I'm going to want some chords in there too. Or some double stops. And the bass can walk. But if I did want the alternating thumb, I would probably still find a way. Now it's really just kind of a half, the bass is really just this. It's kind of a halftime bass, but you've got this backbeat. So that's very different from that. It's more open. I mean, it's more relaxed because you're not driving the bass so much. So that's a certain kind of sound. And you could still improvise up the neck and that's when it helps to be able to thin out the chord progression a little bit. You don't have to play all the chord substitutions. You can just sit and basically play 1 and 5 if it keeps your life simple. It's not really much of an answer, is it? Some songs just lend themselves. Like I probably wouldn't try to play Freight Train with a steady bass. I mean, that would be a little silly, right? Because it's based on this whole thing. But if you really tried to break it down, I don't know. There's the melody. So theoretically, that's chords in a melody, right? I mean, the thing is, it's got a straight eighths feel. It's not. And the steady bass kind of lends itself to the swing feel. So, but I mean, I don't know. See, I want to it's too static, so I want to syncopate it, right? And then I want to have the bass move. So. Kind of silly. It doesn't really work, right? But so really what makes that work is that the alternating thumb, all the little syncopations are happening with the fingers. So that's kind of what the alternating thumb gives you, is like this kind of interlocking system that gives you the pulse, even when the thumb is just going boink, 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 right? So it does that. I will work on a more satisfying answer to that for you, because that's not super great. Let's see. Oh yeah, Mike Dowling, I guess, played a dobro. That is a good point. I feel like I missed some things. Oh, do you have a go-to song when testing a guitar? Not really. I found that I pretty much pick up a guitar and I always play a D chord. I don't know why, but I can kind of tell right away if I like the way it feels in my hand, and then I'll go and play something else. I'll probably just play blues. And maybe if I really like guitar, I'll start to play like something that I've arranged, or play one of my own songs or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, the J45 does not feel that gigantic, Julian. It's that was another sort of nice surprise. It kind of sits nicely under your arm. It's not like playing a dreadnought or a jumbo. Yeah, the J45. Lots of love for the J45. All right. Well, that is, I think that's all the questions we had. If there are any questions about anything coming up, like if you are not a Fingerstyle 5 member and are thinking about doing it, there's a bunch of them here. You can talk to people who are doing it and get their take on it, or you can ask me. And if you want to know anything else about the slide workshop tomorrow, I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes and talk about that, although I already have a little bit. Yeah, always good to have an excuse to try guitars. All I did was go down to the store to try to find some new slides, and I ended up trying out custom shop jumbos, so that was kind of fun. Concert tuning for slide, standard tuning, yes, can be done, but not great for playing unaccompanied. It's kind of a pain because you can't really get any chords. I mean, you could get like stuff on the high string for E. You don't really have the chords, that you need to get. So if you're playing solo with a band, if you're playing solos, single note solos with a band, then it's great. Because you're thinking about single notes and you can get a couple of double stops that you need. So and then there's people who play with their fingers behind the slide, like my buddy Chris, which sounds amazing. The whole Sonny Landreth thing. Okay, let's see. One last question here. Speaking of slide, anything we should know regarding these ahead of tomorrow? Oh yeah, well hang on, this is going to make the camera blurry, but let me grab a couple. Okay. So, most of the ones I seem to have right now are the sort of full length ones. So, if you can get to all the way down to where the finger joins the hand, then I don't mind a long one personally. For me, if I can get it all the way on, then it works okay. My pinky's like just at the top of the slide, and then you can hold on to it with your ring finger, and there you go. But if this one's really too tight, and it kind of sits here. I like the slide to fit at the second joint. I find that comfortable, but then it's too long and it's kind of waving around. So this is kind of the ideal. This is a Moonshine slide. Dunlop sells them. They're made by a woman named Terry Lambert. And this one comes all the way down, and if your pinky sticks out, you can kind of flex your finger a little bit, and the pinky can kind of grip the slide. You can't quite get a full chord with this slide, but for everything else, it's fantastic. So that kind of length is good. So this one's porcelain. I love the porcelain ones. This one is, I think, ceramic. It's the mud slide. Not an endorser. I just like these. This is just a homemade bottleneck. And so it fits all the way on, but it's a little scary because I always have to really kind of work to get it off. This is a brass one I've had forever. Brass I find pretty abrasive, but it can sound good. And again, this one has the short fit and they never break, which is awesome. I've had this one for 30 years. My friend Greg gave it to me. This is horrible for acoustic guitar. Tiny glass slide. It's not long enough. It's too thin. It has no heft. It does not give you a good sound. And it's cool because it's like modeled on the Coruscant bottles that Duane Allman used to play electric guitar. But he was playing a Les Paul through a 100-watt stack, so he didn't need to worry about... He had more than enough sustain, and he wanted something light that he could whip around the strings. And this would be perfect for that, but it sucks for playing steel string guitar. That's all of them. So I like the ceramic and porcelain ones a lot. I think they sound great. They're comfortable. They have this kind of, they have a finish inside that's not slick. It's almost like sandpaper a little bit, like a really fine grit sandpaper. So it's really easy to grip. This one has it too. You can't see it really, but it does. This is branded Dobro, but I'm pretty sure it's the same thing as it feels like porcelain. Let's see. Everybody needs to get going here, but I'm just trying to see if there's any other. Oh, next month's live stream schedule. That'll be, I think it's going to be the first, third, and fourth Thursdays, but I'll post that as soon as I can. Let's see. Oh, hey, Jody. See you tomorrow. The moonshine, I hope it does. I hope the moonshine slide does come in a shorter one, because that's what I want to find. This is the only one they had when I went by Austin Vintage Guitars yesterday, which is my local guitar store. But they should make a shorter one. The moonshine, I don't know if they come in different diameters. This would be a little bit, if you had smaller fingers, this would be a little bit floppy. What? So that was the relative from Jim W. That was the relative merits of slide materials. Okay. What else? Oh yeah, I mentioned that the tune that we're going to do in the workshop tomorrow, we're going to do a version of Corinna. But I can play through it one more time. And let me see if there's any other questions, and then we'll bolt. I was trying to keep this down to a half an hour, but I'm just blah 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 blah. Let's see. I think that was it. Oh, someone asked about guitars for doing both slide and standard tuning. No, really, just whatever you like to play. You can just kind of set it up with the string height and the string, or have it set up with the string height and the string weight that works for you, and just kind of go from there. Definitely. And one of the reasons that I play a flat top guitar when I teach slide is you don't need like a resonator guitar to play slide. Far from it. In fact, some of my favorite acoustic slide playing on modern records is the Ry Cooder stuff, and most of the time he's playing a flat top guitar, and it sounds like $1 million to me. So, okay, so here's what the tune is going to sound like at its simplest iteration. Right, so that's the skeleton of it, and then the next step is to put in some groove elements when the melody's at rest, because the melody only plays over the first 2 bars of each line. Right. And that's really, then just syncopating the melody more, right? So that instead of playing, being able to play, moving the melody around a little bit. So, but as you can see, the melody's mostly on the 1 chord, and then we're playing fretted chords for the melody for 4 and 5, which is absolutely a practical and cool way to do it. So that arrangement that I just played will be kind of like the etude that we work towards. Again, just going through we'll do chords first, finding the voicings, then we'll look at different kinds of slides, right? Because you can slide slowly, you get 2 melody notes, you can slide quickly and get grace notes. You can just, a lot of standard guitar technique, hammering on and pulling off. And staccato notes too. Just little things if you just let everything come off the strings, it sounds a little bit indistinct. But There's little things you can do between your fingers on both hands to kind of clean that up. Starting with how you hold the slide and like that you damp the notes with your index finger, and we're going to get into all of that. Fingerstyle 5, too much for beginner level. I'll let the people that are here that are members speak to that, but it's meant to allow anybody sort of who can do basic finger picking coordination to get in. Well, each tune that we cover always has a very straightforward, simple version where you're just putting the melody in a fairly unsyncopated way over either a simple alternating or simple steady bass. And so you can spend as much time as you want on the material just learning the tune itself. You don't have to get into all of the other craziness with, chord substitutions or improvising or any of that stuff until you're ready to. There are, 3 dozen tunes at this point you could sit and work on, like just all in their kind of fundamental incarnation, and, just work through the exercises and, just develop that basic coordination by working on songs. And there's a lot of exercises in there just for getting the bass going and then working on different rhythms in the fingers and getting that right hand, thumb and fingers independence going. And you can work on that stuff, again, in the context of a tune, but just isolating that element, So if like you've got a tune that, has some syncopation in the melody, like... well, you can also take that apart and just sit there and go. And, just work on this part without worrying about all of this first, right? So at this point, there are several tunes that are broken down that way so that you can think about it. But again, not just, I know that like nobody really wants to sit and just like do exercises for their own sake. So the exercises are always spun off from the song itself, so that at least well, when I get this particular rhythm together, then I'll be able to apply it to doing this tune. So it's always basically ultimately about playing these songs, and there are people that are learning just the 8 bars of the melody and like that's their win, like, hey, I got that tune together. And there are people that are taking the whole thing and arranging it into like a whole 3-minute extravaganza and all points in between. But yeah, there's folks here that do it that can talk to you about that a little bit. Did I post a PDF for tomorrow's workshop? No, not yet. There was sort of a brain glitch, and it's been done for a couple of days, and I just neglected to get it posted. But I will. It will be up later today for various and sundry reasons I won't bore you with. But yeah, you'll be able to access it before the workshop starts tomorrow. You might want to mention a few songs on the Fingerstyle 5 aimed at beginners. Yes. So one of the things we've done lately is done some 1-chord songs. So we did Catfish Blues. Right, so nowhere to go with the thumb, right? So just sit on the thumb and work out the melody. You can play it as simply or as complexly as you want to. And then we did Jack of Diamonds for an alternating thumb tune, and we did it in drop D. So the thumb, there's like not even anything to fret, right? Right, nowhere to go. You're just, here you are, and just grabbing the melody, and it's all in one position. So there's tunes like that. There's at least a dozen of these 8-bar blues that we've been talking about. Trouble in Mind, St. James Infirmary, You Got to Move, How Long Blues. We're Gonna do Key to the Highway, House of the Rising Sun. All the ones that I mentioned earlier are all things that we've covered somewhere here in the membership. And there's always a simple version that you can work on. So that's the idea. So if you've got more questions still, you can post them below this, in the comments on YouTube, or you can always drop me a line through the website, which is fretboardconfidential.com. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. If you're coming to the slide workshop tomorrow, I look forward to seeing you there. You can still sign up for the slide workshop. I think I put a link down below in the info section below this live stream, but it's just fretboardconfidential.com/slide-foundations. So, Staggerly. Yeah, that's a good one too. We do that one also. Anyway, thanks for being here. This was fun. And I'm sure I missed or didn't mention somebody's favorite 8-bar blues. So feel free to point that out. And I will just play a little bit on the way out here. Let's see what you want to do. I should do one of these tunes. How about there it is. I mixed them up. That was Trouble in Mind. It started out as Key to the Highway and quickly morphed into Trouble in Mind. So let me try to stick to one song and not do a medley. All right. Thanks for being here, everybody. See you next time.